Hi, Tony Marriott here. I've just put these short videos together because we've recently done some updates and changes to WP Pipeline. Some things that will just make things better, a couple of features that people have been requesting, and we've kind of added them in. And one particular feature as well, which we've added in because partially it was requested and partially some of the hosting companies have started using additional authentication for WordPress blogs to help protect against the botnet attacks that have been happening in recent times and have caused the hosting companies a lot of issues. So we're going to jump straight into the basic authentication. Now, basic authentication isn't something that WP Pipeline does. It's something that it facilitates, or it actually you need to turn on that facility inside WPP so that it can log into the blogs where you have basic authentication set up on those blogs. Now, as I said, in some cases, your host may set it up for you. It may be set up arbitrarily. You may just find you suddenly got it. And the usual way you find it is because as you go to log in to your blog, you will get a pop-up box that asks for a username and password, and it won't be the WordPress login page that you would recognize. This is an actual pop-up box that comes up over the front of your screen. Now, in some cases, it'll actually tell you what the username and password is. As I said, the idea of this is to stop robots attacking, not humans. It's not to try and make it more complex for you to get into your WordPress site. It's to stop the robots hacking into it automatically. So I say in some cases, the name and password may already actually be written in the form ready for you to put in. So obviously completely easy for humans. But of course, WPP in itself is in effect a robot that's going to access your site, but a legitimate one. And it needs to obviously understand that username and password to be able to log in as well. So if you've got that situation, if you've got basic authentication already set up, then it may be site-wide, as in all your sites have the same username and password, and that kind of tends to be the way things are set up. And what we need to do, we need to go to blog registration management, and that's where we register all our blog details anyway. And we can set up a site-wide basic authentication. We've got a new form here, as you see at the top, which says set default basic auth. And basically you put the username, just username here, and password. And click set basic auth. And you'll see that come up, and that'll set that in just a second. There we are, set it, and you can see what it is here. It's got username, password, and that'll be, whatever it is the username and password you've set. And that will be the default now for all your sites. But of course, some sites may have separate basic authentication username and passwords, or in fact, you could have them all different if you wanted. And you can add those into the individual sites. And if you look in the register edit blog form, you will see that there's a couple of extra fields now for the authentication name and the authentication password. So you can do that at the time you register your blog as you add it in, or you can, and I'll show you in this demo, you can actually take one and edit the credentials. I'll take one of those blogs, and it will fill this form in here for me, and I can now add in another name and another password. And if I edit that blog, that will set that up for me now. So what happens now is all my blogs, except for this one, will have the default username password for authentication, but this one, when it goes to, will actually use the one that I set specifically in that blog. And that's pretty much it. You actually set everything up. There's only one other thing to do, and that's simply because some browsers actually put another pop-up window up. It's nothing to do with basic authentication directly. It's to do with the browser itself, so your Firefox or your Safari. And it will pop up a confirmation box. And basically, we want to turn that confirmation box off. So in Safari, it's very easy. And if I just pop over to my Safari browser, I'll show you how we can make sure we can turn that off. So we simply go to the little tools menu, the little icon or cog icon, down to preferences. Preferences will open up a window, and you want to open up security. And you'll see something here that says, warn me when visiting fraudulent sites. And basically, you just uncheck that box. So you can just close that, and that will stop the warning pop-up box coming up. And I'll show you that in Firefox in just a second. Okay, let's go to Firefox back to our browser and see how this performs with that one. Now I'm in the blog registration management. I'm just going to go back to the main control page now. Now what I've done, I've set up basic authentication in WPP, but I haven't got basic authentication enabled on my site. So what will happen here is it will actually send a basic authentication username and password, but it won't be expecting one. And we'll see what happens normally when we do that. So let's go to this site here that I was using, anesthesiologistassistant.org. And I'm going to, in this case, just a demo, just go to one-click login. Doesn't matter what function we're doing. It's the login process that we're kind of looking at. And what you will see then is that it starts to connect, but it comes up with this box. Now this is to say, this is browser, this is Firefox telling us this. It says you're about to log into the site with the username, another name, but the website does not require authentication and maybe attempt to trick you. Now clearly we know it's not an attempt to trick us because we're trying to log into the site ourselves, so there's no security issue here at all. So we could click yes and carry on through, but of course that kind of defeats the object of the automation of WPP. So we need to stop this pop-up. Now if we don't have any basic authentication set up on the site, we could simply close this box. We could go back here, go back to the blog registration management, and we could just simply set the default with nothing in the username or password and set it to nothing. And when it's set to nothing, it would never send anything, and therefore we wouldn't get the pop-up box. So we could do that, remembering of course that if you've got any individual ones set up, you need to take those off as well. But if you've got a mixture, for instance, some with authentication, some without authentication, this may be an issue for you. So the solution, as I said, in Firefox is the following. It's very easy, as long as you just follow the instructions here. So we're going to just open a new tab in Firefox, and we just need to put in here about:config. Okay, and we just hit return on that one, and it will come up with a message. Seems a bit scary. It says you might void the warranty, show this warning sign, blah, blah, changes advanced settings could be harmful for the stability and security of performance. Don't worry about that. We're only going to be adding one thing. We're not going to be playing with anything. So you can say, I'll be careful, I promise, and click that. And it will take us in, and you'll see a whole load of settings. Like I said, we're not going to touch any of these settings. But we are just going to search in this box for one particular one. And it's called network.http.fishy-userpass-length. And I know that's long-winded, but you will find that in the FAQ. I'll give you that exact one. You can copy and paste that out, so you can just drop that in there. That's in the wppipeline.com/blog FAQ. We'll just find that one basically, and if you haven't had any changes done to your browser before, it will come up with nothing. If it does come up with this particular setting, then you can just right-click and modify it, but we're going to actually add a new one in, or so we're going to add this one in. So we can just right-click anywhere in this blank area underneath. As I said, if it was already there, you could say modify, but in this case, we're going to say new, and we're going to say integer, and it'll give us the preference name, and we put the same one in that we did there. We look for network HTTP fishy, and OK that one, and we're going to put in the number 255. So it's that number 255 that will basically turn off the warning message for us. By default, if it's up there, it's likely to be set to 1. As I said, so set it to 255 if you need to modify it. OK that, and we're absolutely done. So all we need to do now is come out of that. Make sure we're not going to play with anything else. And now if we go back to our main page in WP Pipeline, we can try the same thing again, and hopefully there we are. We're going to one-click login, and this time it shouldn't pop up that basic authentication message. It just goes in and logs into the blog for us. And there we go. So that's it. That's pretty much all you need to know about basic authentication. You don't need to understand how it works, just how to configure it. And I said, if your host hasn't configured basic authentication on your blogs, then you don't need to do anything other than just make sure this is all turned off. And that's, if you remember, just back in the blog registration management page. And just make sure we clear the defaults. I'm going to just clear those defaults now and take these back to nothing. And once that's done, it won't send the basic authentication anyway, so there won't be a problem. And as I said, you'll also have to, any blogs you've set individually if you have, again, just edit those blogs. And we can take out the basic authentication. Edit the blog, and everything's back as it was. That's it. It's all very simple. You will find details in the FAQ, so always check the FAQ before you go through the help desk. Okay, cheers.